Well, hello, that's me again. Pardon me. Today is May 22nd, 2025. It is Thursday, I believe. And let's start without procrastination with things which really matter in terms of the policy and politics. And we can start with Vladimir Putin's statement today that essentially Russia is now busy dealing with the creation of the buffer zone, and why buffer zone and how it's going to look like. You can understand by looking at today's tally. And today's tally, as you can see yourself, for the line of the combat contact, if you wish, which is again supported by the means of objective control. Just for in the last 24 hours, as you can see yourself, there have been 317 drone attacks on Russian territory by what passes for Ukraine or Ukrainian forces. In reality, probably much of it is also operated and controlled by all kinds of the people who pass for military from UK, France or what have you. However, yeah, most of them have been shut down. Some of them, especially the fragments which have been shut down, hit some of the apartment blocks. That's what they do. That's what NATO does. It's really good only in fighting civilians. So, but most of them have been shut down, and the total number of the drones shut down in the last 36 hours is something like 594. So Russian air defense is very busy, as you can see yourself, and this will be the basically point of our discussion today. But before I go, I also need to show you something in terms of the development of the tactical situation, if you wish. We go to our good friend Marat Khairul, and here is his map of this one of the sectors of the front, as you can see yourself. This is Seversk, and again, as you can see yourself, these are the if you wish, this red arrows all over the place, and tactical action, which of course comes and integrates into larger operational level actions. And yeah, there is no chance for armed forces of Ukraine to survive this. And then we go a little bit more here. So as you can see yourself, there is another, if you take a look at those blue arrows, which are attempts at the counter-attack of the Ukrainian forces. You will not see it here, but it's called the DRG. Essentially, it's the attacks in force of about the diversionary recon group, which can range anywhere from 5 people to about platoon size. They are immediately detected and annihilated, but they will continue to try to do those things for the PR action, because this is the only thing which NATO generals know how to do, the PR action. They do not know how to fight a real war, which they already lost with the devastating score. But this is not just the special military operation per se on the ground which matters here. And I want to talk a little bit today about not so much political action, but as how to put it, even I sometimes, and if you read my books, if you read my blog, you know that I try to explain complex things, sometimes very complex things, in the most simple way. Not because I consider my people, people who read me or listen to me are, like retards or idiots. No, by no means. I respect my audience. That is why I try not to overload people who do not have background with all unnecessary math or things of this nature, to explain to them that, yeah, what you see, like this drone, obsession publicly, it's all fine and dandy, but always look at the numbers, always view things from the position of the staff officer. Can you become staff officer? Well, Obviously, somebody who doesn't have the military background, they cannot become staff officer. It's very difficult. But even those who have military background, sometimes they cannot go and become staff officer because they will be, especially junior level people, not to speak of the, pardon me, grants and COs and things and people of this nature. They will be talking about this. Oh yeah, I know how to use, this and that type of weapon. I know how to control the squad in the defense or in offense. That's fine. These are critical, ground-based, so to speak, realities of any armed forces. But reality is, of course, you have to understand that those people who read those field manuals or who read those tactical and operational manuals, if they have access to them, who do not have proper preparation, so to speak, proper background, they will look at this as like, what the hell is this? I mean, they can memorize some things like, for example, most of the NCOs, and let alone, people on the level of the, sergeant or, and let alone grants, they can read the combat manual, which is, for example, for the platoon level. They will understand many things, they will memorize some of those things, and they will go around, and in their combat training, they will be actually training and internalizing those things. For example, how to look at the, fire chart, how to, do basic topography, how to maneuver within this, that thing, how to set up there, for example, and participate in setting up the strong point of platoon or company, because everybody, is involved in doing this. But they will never understand why, because to understand why, this is the officer's issue. They are the ones who actually get promoted, not just from the some platoon commander. They eventually become company commander, they eventually become battalion commanders, and then suddenly they get on the regimental and brigade level, and they need to go to academy as the chief of staff, for example. And guess what? I'm talking about academy, not what they already had as the military academies or officer, high-level officer schools. Mine, for example, is 5 calendar years, 6 academic years, and a graduate degree in engineering, no less, related to the military. But they need to go and study more of operations. You want to get onto the level of the staff officer of brigade, you know what, get ready for getting into the naval air or what Army War College's equivalence in Russia, which is usually 2 years long preparation, and it's all about operations. Well, tactics too, they do study tactics there, but they kind of restudy it again and again and again with the update on the realities which exist at the moment of them being in these colleges. But primarily it is a lot of math, less physics, but math it rules. And so even I have at some point of time go out and do things like that, simplify things, and I did it recently in a couple videos ago about explaining how you can calculate actually issues of the, for example, the probabilities and time duration depending on the operation based on the ratios. But even that things, you remember, so yeah, even you have to go and say, okay, this is the probability of detection, for example, depending on the operational sweep of your search platform. I use the search platform here as the one of the aircraft, be that IL-38N or P-3 Orion. And so this is how it looks like. You have to calculate things and even basic things to get your kind of grasp of this. And this is the issue which comes at the forefront of all that, and that is, how do you know? Well, people called it OSINT, which is open source intelligence, and I am on record. If you do not have serious intel and military background, you're not gonna be a good OSINT person, which is what is open source intelligence. You read magazines and newspapers. Well, some people say that you have to go and to communicate with people on the friendly basis without subverting them in the sense of which intel services do. Well, you better stay away from those things. But you have, for example, your friends, and some of them just recently from the service, and they drop here and there all those pieces of information, which is collection of the open information. It is not punishable by any, it's not a crime. It's actually very important profession, and this is partially what I am, apart from being forced to be a political commentator. And how do you go about this? Well, for example, many people in the United States, and especially from Intel community, including people who really are not really that good of the intelligence officers, when they look at the Russian army, the first thing they go here. Absolutely. This is what you do. It's open source intelligence. This is actually the military thought, one of the, if not the most important military magazine in the world, considering the status of Russia as military superpower and its army being not arguably anymore the best armed forces in the world. And what they write here, obviously, as you can see yourself, it's the magazine is called For the Generals, Admirals, and Officers of the Armed Forces of Russian Federation. And even here, many people without background, they will go and start looking at this and like, yeah, it's like really boring, And then of course they stumble upon something which, gets into the Markov chains and probabilities and all that things and matrices and say, oh, hell with it, we don't want to. Well, I cannot afford to do this because I need to go out, read and understand concept before I go here. And I have to maintain my reputation as the reliable source of information and knowledge, because this is what I stated from the onset when opening my channel, which is Smoothie X12, $2.99 a minute. I'm just screwing with you people. So, and the point is that you go out and you read magazines and newspapers. In other matter, that unlike some, average Joe from the street, and even some NCO, which like, oh yeah, I went through the, here and there, and I'm just saw the combat and things like that. Yeah, that's fine. Do you understand why you fought this way or not another? And they're like, oh yeah, because it's written in the, in the tactical manual. Well, it's the same as you ask the blonde, where do you get your electricity? And she will say that on the wall socket. Yeah, that's where you take electricity. No. And here we have to go and look at it. And then suddenly when I say that I make statement, and I wrote 4 books on this, probably working on the 5th one, that, okay, United States lost the arms race. No, this is not Russian rah-rah. This is not me being Russian. I am American citizen. I want the United States to succeed. I want the United States to be a strong, beautiful country, so it's my vested interest. But I have to go out and say, and people ask me, how do you know that? Well, of course, I know Russian military better than pretty much anybody in the United States, from the, apart from the people who allegedly have some access to some, intelligence information, which is really covered up. But no, but it is also by the virtue of the fact that I read not only Russian magazines, I read American military magazines and write about it. If you look attentively at the bibliography of my books, they are always like 25 pages. These are all references, and I prefer, unless I speak about specific occasion, for example, in Russia, I prefer to use American sources because they are the best proof of my points. And here is one then. And so I go out and look at, for example, things like that. This is periodical. This is very important magazine, together with the parameters, which are from the U.S. Army War College. This one is Joint Force Quarterly. As you can see yourself, this is issue 117, second quarter of 2025. And they talk about this, as you can see yourself. America needs bold joint force leaders, obstacles to integrated deterrence, developing alternative manning strategies, and things of this nature. And you begin to ask the question, if you, for example, go to the military thought and look at the tone and subject matters there, you understand that it's very business-like. There is no urgency. They just merely say, oh, okay, we have this problem. This is how we address it. And, for example, on special military operation. But the tone of even Joint Force Quarterly, starting from 2023, it is essentially panicking. And this is immediately noticeable by anybody with a modicum of the understanding of the realities of the operations and strategy. So yeah, tactical level guys who are like, oh yeah, I know how to use 25 different types of the weapons, and so yeah, that's fine. That's extremely important. Nobody argues with that. But victories are fought and won on the operational strategic levels. And here we have Joint Force Quarterly, and when I say that United States, especially after Trump's statements about this Golden Dome thing, which not going to happen, we know this, but it's going to be a lot of bonuses for the CEOs of all those Raytheons and Boeings and what have you. But the point is that when I said that United States lacks now 2 generations in air defense, I mean it. And here comes, for example, one of the indications or indicators of that which we need to talk about, because obviously, well, most of the websites or YouTube channels which deal with this, they deal with the masturbation to all kinds of military toys, and so that's pretty much for fanboys. And pardon me, I do not want to, you see, I don't name those sites, but here it is. If we go into the, for example, issues of the assessment of the America's air defense force and its capability, or rather lack thereof, we can immediately go, for example, towards this. This is freshest. You see today, just literally, there's videos all over the place. Russian ballistic missile destroys Ukrainian Patriot complex. This is, again, we can see how you can go and look up this video. It's in details in the Postnet's Telegram channel on Thursday. The Ministry of Defense reported that the strike on a position of Ukraine Dnipropetrovsk region had taken out a multifunctional AN MPQ-65 radar, which means death of the complex, a control unit, death of the complex and the crew, as well as 2 Patriot launches. Well, that is, well, basically it's over. And I want to only mention, obviously, Mr. Semyonov about the fact that Patriot cannot defend itself, forget about defending anything else. And when you go and, for example, in the latest, freshest issue of the Joint Force Quarterly, you run into this. It is called Protecting ACE, the Air Defense and Agile Combat Deployment. And employment, rather. And you will say, okay, what the hell is ACE? Yeah, what is this Agile Combat Employment? Well, I want to get you back to the TRADOC, essentially critical admission that in modern war, if you are, for example, the force which is built around a table of equipment, organization of equipment of the United States, you will not be able to defend or set up or defend static command posts starting from any level, tactical to operational to let alone strategic level on the, let's say, the army and army group. And so that's what they talk about by Jan Richardson. This is, as you can see yourself, that emphasizes the use of permanent air bases and instead uses dispersed operating locations for short periods. There you go. Again, getting back to those admissions by TRADOC. I'll show you in the end. So this approach complicates adversary targeting. There you go, critical. Targeting. What is adversary targeting? Increases survivability of air forces and imposes dilemma within adversary decision making by exploiting maneuver and surprise. But rapid maneuver of air forces from base to base only partially addresses survivability concerns against a peer adversary. Okay, and here comes this critical thing. If you go to this adversary long-range fires or even small unmanned aerial systems may still present a viable threat to aircraft personnel and equipment on the ground. The Air Force must find a way to effectively integrate highly mobile and flexible air defense capabilities into this agile combat employment. What does it mean? Translating it in the human language, it means what I just said. that, for example, Ukrainians, they have to jump, I mean, with their command post of something like on the tactical level twice daily if they don't want to die. Now, it doesn't matter how many times they jump in during the day, they are detected, they are tracked, they are, the targeting is developed, and they are killed. And Russians can do this all day long because they have the best recon strike and recon fire complex in the world, despite the fact that United States enjoys a larger and somewhat better satellite constellation. But Russia is absolutely overwhelmed, combined the West with production of not only drones, but the electronic components of this recon activity are really good. They are one of the two best, if not the best in the world. And so that suddenly you encounter the situation, you need to preserve your Air Force component. You can't. And this is precisely because what Russians use are, of course, primarily hypersonic weapons or very high supersonic. And so they go and develop this idea of their that Subcommittee on Tactical and Land Forces within the House Armed Services Committee specifically highlighted insufficient air defense to protect critical air bases and assets as a major concern in the markup of the National Defense Authorization Act for 2024, requesting additional detail on how the Air Force intends to address the shortfall. And so they talk about the threat to AC and ballistic missiles and approximately 1,200 fighter aircraft to prevent foreign intrusions into the Indo-Pacific region. So they talk about obviously People Liberation's Army, but you see they already shift focus to China. But the point is that, okay, let's say China is a little bit separate thing militarily than Russia, but possible solutions, they say. And they call about, considering the fact that most of the aircraft United States actually employs today, they are not combat ready. I spoke about this ad nauseam, and they talk about this austering, so to speak, of the airfields, which they will not be able to do it. You cannot move things constantly, especially when most of your aircraft are hangar queens and require an extremely high number of the hours to per flying hour. But a second course of action involves providing the Air Force with a more robust, unilateral, land-based air defense capability. And so they say there is some limited precedent for doing so. And so they talk about the defending airbase from, UAVs. Sure, you can theoretically defend from UAVs, not from the latest UAVs, which are becoming to look more and more as basically combination of the cruise missile and UAV. And I'm talking about also the loitering munitions, which fly now at long distances. So, however, to protect Air Force assets from a peer adversary would require a much more comprehensive and layered capability than man-portable counter-US equipment. Absolutely. Thus, a significant material, organization, and training solution would be necessary to either identify and implement new technology or transplant existing Army kinetic and non-kinetic air defense equipment into the Air Force units. But what kinetic and non-kinetic equipment? You saw yourself. One of those variants, so to speak, is of course Patriot PAC-3, which will not defend against anything. It will be annihilated in case of war immediately, and I will explain why. So, what do they have in mind then when you really have only one gun to defend yourself with? So, well, there you go. So, as they say, and this is like shocking. This is shocking. The first step in implementing this change is to develop opportunities for experimentation and training between multi-domain tactical force or whatever the force it is. My tongue is broken, just by reading those abbreviations. MSHORAD. What is SHORAD? Short-range air defense platoons with Air Force ACE exercises. So okay, they say that let's transfer or reposition all those Army the air defense units with SHORAD. Okay, what is SHORAD? Well, how to put it? Let's go to take a look at the Congressional Research Service upgraded about 5 months ago, that updated 5 months ago, and they explain to you what U.S. Army Maneuver Short-Range Air Defense is. And here we have, this is SHORAD, and this is when if you are American officer and you saw yourself real picture on the battlefield, or for example the special military operation, your guards have to literally just drop down there, you know, because just reading from that. And look at this, this is what SHORAD is, increment 1. It contains, or for example, here is on the Striker combat vehicle or infantry fighting vehicle, whatever the hell the name of this thing is. They place on it, look at this, 2 AGM 114L longbow Hellfire missiles, capable of hitting ground targets. Okay, and actually some ATGMs, such as Hellfire, they can hit such targets as helicopters. Okay, that's fine, sure, why not? Then you have 4 FIM-92 Stinger missiles for aerial targets and launcher, configured by Raytheon. Okay, from here you can discard it as completely irrelevant in the modern battlefield, because those Stingers will do nothing against whatever is used today on the modern battlefield, except for possibly, possibly very slow UAVs. And then, of course, yeah, you need to have 30mm automatic cannon. Nobody argues with that. And so when you look at this, and it's like, seriously, guys, you really want this SHORAD thing with Stingers with the range of up to 9 kilometers in range, not elevation. Elevation is much smaller. To put in there, what else NATO has in this respect, you know, to defend its force? If it was agile force, so to speak, agile being basically on the run constantly, which is, of course, immediately, I mean, kills your combat effectiveness, whatever is left of it. And so, well, guess what? Let's go to the SHORAD by Saab. Okay, let's take a look at SHORAD by Saab. Guess what it is? It is, again, obviously short range. Nothing wrong with the short range. You have to have short range air defense system is designed to detect and defeat new airborne threats on the battlefield. What kind of airborne threats? Well, ground-based short range with the range, interception range of 9 kilometers. Really, if you want to operate against something which is presented on the modern battlefield, such as, for example, Lemur, which is the item 305, which flies at 20 kilometers, shouldn't forget, and it's high subsonic, let alone if you deal with the Hermes, which flies on 25 kilometer range with the almost hypersonic speed. Good luck using Stinger against that. You will not defend anything. And as the, so to speak, performers, quote unquote, of all those high and low end air defense systems demonstrated, I'm sorry, guys, it's naked, yeah. And the only thing they can do now is to hope to shoot some slow flying, like, you know, 100 kilometer per hour, like 65 miles per hour, or maybe 100 miles per hour drone. That's about it. And when you think that you can defend with SHORAD your air base, well, of course, let me remind you what short range in Russian is. And this is not even funny. We can, of course, we'll start with the Tor M2. And as you can see yourself, this was updated in 2021. Since then, Tor M2 already underwent major upgrades there in terms of electronics and the range of missiles. But as you can see yourself, even this, actually this thing, which is organic to the tactical level units of Russian army, has the range of between 12 and 16 kilometers, and on the elevation up to 9, 8, I don't remember exactly, but yeah, they are designed primarily to fight low flying targets. And guess what? It can shoot targets, well, even up to Mach 5, and it already did. For example, shooting ballistics, operational tactical ballistics such as Tochka U of Ukrainian armed forces, and effectively. So this is one of them. But then, of course, comes this thing in. As you can see yourself, that's S1 Panzer. Everybody knows now what this thing is, including its latest modification, when you will have actually 6 smaller tubes up on the other tubes for the air defense missiles, which are called Gvozdь and Nail. They are specifically designed against slow, cheap targets like UAVs. And if you take a look at the actually Panzer's performance, well, what can I say? It's really, there's no comparison, okay? Simple as that. So they have these new versions of Panzer already operating there. And as you can see yourself, the latest versions, they operate against the targets which can fly up to Mach 3, oh, actually more than Mach 3, which actually no NATO country has. And so they have their ranges, new versions of their, well, yeah, the new ones, the maximum speed of the target up to, 1700 meters per second, which is essentially hypersonic, and the medium trajectory speed is up to, pardon me, of the missile, and Mach 3 of the target, and the range is up to 40 kilometers. And Panzers already have the impeccable reputation for that. But anybody who tells me again that, oh, how the hell you know? What are you talking about? Well, let me put it this way. The NCO or Grunt who sits in the front of this liquid crystal display and pushes those buttons, he obviously has a very high level training. They do understand what they are pushing and why they are pushing it, but they do not understand, which is absolutely normal. This is supposed to, they are not engineers. Officers are. For example, if you go to Yaroslavl Air Defense Military Academy, that's what they do. This is specifically honed for them to operate their air defense complexes. And I will show you something. Everything we do in our life is based on models, mathematical models. You may not even know that it is model, but this is exactly how it was designed. Even in your car. So if some of you are well-off and rich people who drive latest Cadillacs, which have the heads-up display, and they have the, well, sensor fusion, essentially. They combine the visual data from your cameras. I have actually 3 cameras on my car, so 2 front-looking and 1 back, and they also have radar. And guess what? That's how it creates the data fusion from the heterogeneous sources. And this is a very complex mathematical model. This is what your microchip or computer on the car does. So go to the air defense system, and guess what it's based upon? Model. This is what staff officers and combat officers of high level study. Models, mathematical models, how you do it. Just to demonstrate to you, if you really think that, oh yeah, it's so easy, you push the button, the missile flies. No. Here's what, just to give you example, one of the work, and again, it's about the air defense battle. Okay? So this is from 2022, so it's pretty fresh. So, and it is called mathematical model of the solution of the tasks of the target redistribution of the air defense fire means in the contour of the air defense of the surface ship and the system of the air defense of the group of the ships during the threat and attack of the repulsing the attack of the anti-shipping cruise missiles. Well, if you take a look at this, it's not about like, oh yeah, you see this missile flies, let's detect it, capture it, and shoot it down. No, it's boring. It's a lot of math, and it's all a lot of math which is realized in the software and hardware. And as the result, you see yourself that, oh yeah, that's what it is. Look what talk about. For example, they give you one of the examples of the. This is one of the problems which your computer solves, and which any serious or tactical and operational level officer should know. It's called the estimate of the degree of the threat of the aerial targets. and suddenly you go into all those matrices, you go into the weighted means, you go into the mathematical expectations and probabilities, and that's what you go against. But if you take a look attentively, the formula actually of, especially if you look attentively at the counter launches, depending on the number of missiles you launch against, it's very well known formula. It actually kind of, how to say it, transforms itself a little bit from the tactical and technological reality plus minus, but it's pretty much almost the same. And if you can go and you can take a look at this, and man, there you go. That's all about matrices. It's all about how you design the combat activity. In this particular case, battle, especially when you operate what the Russian military operates now, which is called the mesh network, which is the new actually definition of the net centricity, which is the mesh network, which means each with each other. Literally every shooter, everybody talks to each other, not just to some central command post. And as you might understand, you do not want to go into the Kalman filter and all things of this wonderful nature, which of course require a serious processing power and of course extremely high level technology. Well, I have news for you. United States Army doesn't know how to do it. Russians do, because they not basically adapt this only for in terms of the net-centric warfare. They have kinetic means, and those kinetic means are intertwined, and they are the best of in the world by a mile. And United States doesn't have anything like Buk M3, just doesn't. It doesn't have anything like S-400. THAAD failed miserably in Israel. It fails pretty much everywhere, the same as all other air defense means. So, and as the result, when you read those Joint Force Quarterly and you begin to look at the mathematics, you understand approximately the probabilistic nature. Well, approximately, because obviously I do not have the access to the data sets. They're highly classified. But when Russians say that, yeah, we know how to do it, and go try us. That's why it makes the base for me to make those statements, which are not loud once you begin to read at the tone of all those issues of the parameters and Joint Force Quarterly, that essentially they admit it. We are in the bind, and that's what it is. And whenever dealing with those issues, you have to keep in mind all those wonderful pictures of all those military technology. Guys, military education, serious military education is extremely difficult. It is complex, and you go in and you end up being engineer, and you have to become, mathematician. I know some of my friends actually taught in, they commanded not only ships, they even formations. One of classmates, well, he is younger, in 1986, issue, Oleg Golubev, he is Vice Admiral, Deputy Commander of the Northern Fleet. So yeah, submarines, all those things, air defense complexes, yeah, it's so fun. No, it's not fun. It's extremely stressful, and it's extremely difficult. And that is why whenever I hear and see all those fanboys who have degree in fiction literature, or in gaming, or what have you, and they talk about war and warfare, I only want to tell them to go back to their, first grade in the elementary school and start from studying arithmetics. And this is what I wanted to tell you today. As always, guys, I want to express my profound gratitude to my wonderful patrons. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford it, please buy me a coffee and two, or support me on Patreon. I would really appreciate this. So have a nice rest of the week. I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.